Hi, I'm Barbara O'Brien. I'm an animal trainer and photographer, and I'd like to welcome you to the Empathetic Trainer. Sorry.
Welcome.
Welcome, Dr. Ian Dunbar. Welcome to the Empathetic Trainer. We are so grateful that you're going to take the time with us today. I think from reading your book, the new book that's coming out, Barking Up the Right Tree, which everybody who loves dogs and pretty much any animal should go out and get, because dogs are going to be better for it. I mean, if people take the time, they read your book, understand the concepts, if they're not already doing some of these things, it's only going to improve your dog's life, which of course will improve your life. So dogs are going to be better for it. And we want to thank you for doing this for the dogs in the world. I learned about you maybe 10 or 15 years ago through Denise Nord, who has beagles.
Oh, yeah, lovely person.
And she
totally beagle.
Yeah, and she actually trains beagles, which we bow down because beagles have of course I'm being biased, but beagles are beagles and they do what beagles do, and paying attention to humans and listening to commands, not necessarily what beagles want to do. So she was amazing, and I started out with dogs in 50 years ago now. So yeah, and that was way different, as you recall. Choke chains, adversion, be the boss, and it never felt right. And when I watched somebody hang a dog up to choke off his air, I was like, this, because they were two dogs were fighting and they hung the dog up. How is he going to learn from that? I tried to study and learn different approaches, and that's when I learned about you. And you are the grandfather of the methods of training, where we do lure training, but not all completely dependent, where it becomes a bribe, and there's a fine line. So did all that off my chest because I just am so excited to have you here. I'd like to read a quick little introduction. Dr. Ian Dunbar is a veterinarian, animal behaviorist, dog trainer, and writer. He uses a unique off-leash training technique that involves lure reward training. He started the Serious Puppy Training, which was the first off-leash puppy training class. Ian has written several books about dog training, and his newest book is called Barking Up the Right Tree. So everyone's I got an advanced copy of the book and read it and marked it all up.
How'd you get the advanced copy?
Jamie sent it to me. It's just a document, I mean, I had to print 400 pages, something like that, because I can't.
It was a PDF, yeah.
But it was great.
I actually, Jamie got the very first copy ever 2 days ago, and I thought, how come you've got a copy?
Oh, no, I printed it out so I could read it. Yeah. Because I wanted
to. I guess, when you read the book, you'll realize that this goes back, well before I was born. I mean, to give your listeners, viewers, I guess, a history. My great-grandfather, I grew up on a farm, and my great-grandfather was a farm lad, and he worked hard and ended up owning 4 farms. Anyway, one year he won a straight line plowing contest with his horse and no reins. So he was directing the horse just by verbal cues and praising it. So that's what I grew up with. And throughout the book, I keep echoing what I learned from my grandpa and my dad, not just the way they trained their gun dogs and working dogs, but also the cows, the pigs, the sheep, the chickens. So when I was 5, I had to live at the farm because my dad fell off the roof and broke his skull. I shouldn't laugh at that, but he lived through it. He landed on 2 upturned buckets, metal buckets, and crushed them with his head.
Oh.
Saved his life. So I'm at the farm and they're trying to entertain me. So I I developed a recall on 80 cows and 200 chickens when I was 5. So I grew up with this way, and I was introduced to the on-leash sort of military police model, and later to become the obedience competition, on-leash, let's do repetitive obedience drills, much later. And I actually had the same reaction as you did, which was, what on earth are they going to learn from this? Because always I ask people, what are you trying to teach? And has the dog learned it yet? Yes, well done. No, then why are you still doing this if you already proved it doesn't work well? So I always evaluate different training techniques, whether reward based or aversive punishment based, on do they work and how well do they work. Being a behaviorist, I measure it precisely and I come up with a percentage of response reliability percentage of, say, the word sit in any scenario,
Hmm.
in the kitchen before dinner, in your bedroom, in the living room, in your garden, on the sidewalk, or in the dog park. And I'll say, well, your dog's running at 3% reliability in the dog park. Don't you want to train it? And I do that with the reward training techniques too, because we're nowhere near using rewards to full advantage. You know, if you are mentioning beagles, and that actually for a long time was my favorite breed.
Hmm.
And in my first book, they're all beagle pictures and social behavior, sexual behavior, even training, which I knew very little about. But if you want to train a beagle, you have to it's just one exercise. You train him to come, which means come, sit, stay, watch,
Hmm.
to get him to look at you, which means his nose is lifted from the ground. And as a reward, you say, go sniff. But what the beagle doesn't know is you've hidden a couple of really attractive odors, like a bit of cat poop, a bit of steak. So the beagle's sniffing over here and he's sniffing worms, casts and all that. I say, no, over here, go sniff, go sniff. And then he goes, wow,
Yeah.
the owner knows better than me. Next time they say come, I'm going to come sit watch and say, tell me, where are the sniffs? So the only reward you can use in training, obviously, is go sniff. Nothing else is going to work because you're working with the biggest reward. So we start from there and then we make it even more powerful. So these are the secrets of the book:
Wow.
how to come up with more powerful rewards, how to use them more effectively, and how, when administered by people, aversive punishment simply doesn't work.
No.
It's not a quick fix. It's neither quick, it's very involved, and it's not a fix, as evidenced by continued use. So now we flash back to those on leash classes and they jerk the dog hour after hour, week after week, walk after walk. When are you going to learn? The dog is not learning from this leash correction. It ain't a correction.
Hmm.
So anyway, that's just to set the stage for people. Everyone thinks I'm an academic, which I am. I'm a behaviorist, so I observe behavior, and there's no question about it. I don't ask the questions like, why did the dog do that? My wife used to do that.
Hmm.
She's a cognitive psychologist, and as you'll see in the book, she had tremendous input by asking very simple questions like, have you taught Omaha to do that?
Omaha being
Or,
the dog you referred to in the
or
book.
you must, the question is, let's say a dog is upset, he's fearful, what do you do? And I say, well, we classically condition, we try and get rid of the fear, but also we operantly condition. We tell the dog to sit and stay. Why? Telling a dog what to do will really help it deal with fears.
Hmm.
And Mimi would always dictate, you must always see it from the dog's point of view, and you must always consider how the dog is feeling, although you'll never know any more than we do with people. I mean, a person, you meet behind a counter who's serving you is not very happy today and maybe rude to you. We
Hmm.
don't know what they're thinking. Maybe their dad died that morning.
Hmm.
So we never know what people are thinking. So we never actually know what dogs are thinking, but we know what they do. And then we can make an assumption that if they don't come when called, if they back off, if they hunker down, if they're shaking, if their paws are sweating, they're probably stressed. So as well as training it what we want it to do, we must heavily classically condition to deal with the underlying sort of fear and anxiety problems. So I was lucky with the people around me all the
Oh, for
time,
sure.
farmers, and then Mimi, a cognitive psychologist.
No, this is really true, and luckily for the horse world, I'm not sure how familiar you are with. I'm sure you are familiar with horses, but that's changing too. All the aversive punishment methods and a lot of force without understanding is more and more people are starting to learn that understanding and having empathy for what the horse is thinking and feeling and why is he anxious, because he can't learn when he's anxious and afraid, and getting him to learn to regulate himself by learning his calming signals, learning how our intention and our emotion affects the horse. And it's slowly growing for the better for horses, because everything going slow is going fast, just like you said. You're able to work with the horse so he can regulate himself. And I'm sure it's going to be similar with the dogs with anxiety. If you can help them
Well,
regulate,
it's
then they can
similar
learn.
and it's different according to whether the animal is altrical or precocious. So basically, how long does it take to socialize the animal? So with dogs, we have a long time, up to 3 months. But the biggest problem in dogs at the moment is no one is socializing young animals. They're not handling neonates. They're not introducing them to 100 unfamiliar people in the breeding kennel or 100 unfamiliar
Exactly.
people the first month at home. We then go back to horses, which are precocious. You've got 48 hours to socialize a horse. Well, there's good news, bad news. The good news is it takes you no time at all to prevent, for good, any horse fear or anxiety. The bad news is you've got 48 hours to do it. And no, if you're talking about a bit of horse now that's worth six figures, no one's going in the stable when the mares fold. The owner and the stable lad. You expose it to everything, and you in 48 hours, and then that animal, and of course, uh, oh, not Bill Miller. I went to college with Bill Miller, Bob Miller, Robert
Oh,
Miller. Yeah, he's
Robert.
actually on my
Yeah, Robert
veterinary
Miller.
ski team, and
Now that's a connection, because
yeah,
he's
the
also
veterinary
revered in as
cartoonist.
behaviorist. So
And he sort of pioneered this in horses. But way before that, of course, we have I don't know how to pronounce this word, nidificus. Anyway, it's geese. You know, animals that bond
how they
within
imprint. Hmm.
seconds of being born or hatched. So we all know this from Conrad Lorenz. You've got 30 minutes to socialize and bond with this little gosling. And then it's done for life. The thing will follow
Hmm.
you everywhere, to the car, to the bathroom, around your property. So that's a highly precocious, group of animals. But I find it very sad in horses and in dogs, and horses are highly precocious. No one does it. I mean, flacking white sheets, banging on cans, dropping stuff, making noise, playing the radio, handling it all over, tapping on its hoof, putting a hood over its head,
Hmm.
and passing a stomach tube, Robert Miller used to do too, to these baby foals. And then as a stallion, you say hello again. He comes up and says, hi there, and lowers his head, saying, I'm your buddy. Yeah, he's not up here like, doing all the, you know, this is
Hmm.
when
Right, when he's
sometimes
frightened. Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
someone came up to me once and said, I got a problem with my dog, Dr. Dunbar. And I said, oh, what's that? They says, it barks. And I said, oh no, that's terrible. Of all the dogs you could have got, you pick one that barks. I tell the story in my book.
One that barks.
But again, how many horses does it take for horsey people to realize this is born and designed to be a flighty animal? That, yeah,
Exactly. You should let the
well,
horse be a
I would
horse.
say
Right.
not,
Understand why he
because
is a horse.
then you got to take that flightiness out of it, as you've got to take fearfulness out of a
Right.
dog. And it will be a flighty animal, all things being equal. If you just let it grow up as a horse in vacuo, around no people, with horses or what have you,
Hmm.
then it will get not just, it'll get more flighty as it grows older. This is developmentally very sound in the wild, that animals, whether, yeah, they are
Right.
programmed to socialize with who's around them when they're very young. Less than 48 hours in horses,
Right.
less than 3 months in dogs. But when they now get away from the herd, horses, or come out of the den, dogs, they are programmed to avoid any animal that's unfamiliar. So all we have to do is teach them we are the familiar ones. We're all around you with their funny and sometimes scary human ways when you're very young. And we hit it with them then when they're only minor stressed. I mean, you do get little blips of cholesterol. But what you do if you don't do this in adulthood, you get
Uh-huh.
adrenal emptying surges of cholesterol, cortisone, adrenaline to innocuous stimuli, like you blew your nose, or you fell down, or there was a loud
Hmm.
noise. So
So they
that's
say the
basically
horse
the
blew up.
process
Yeah.
of early socialization. It's reprogramming the brain of the animal to develop in a way to now embrace people and thoroughly enjoy their company and contact.
I have a question then. Is it ever too late, in a sense, with dogs? Because we saw during COVID, um, people got dogs. Great. You know, they were lonely, they got dogs. But the poor dogs, because of COVID, didn't get socialized in a way near as much or in a way that they should. There's this whole generation that we run across when people try to want to use the dogs as animal actors, and we're going to meet them and evaluate, see if they want to be a good animal actor or enjoy it. The dog cannot handle new people, new environment. I mean, is it too late for those people because they couldn't, or however, they COVID made it hard for people to get together, so it'd be hard to socialize 100 people over time, to
Um,
see a puppy like
it's
you
not
should.
too late. It's just that prevention is
Good.
diabolically falling off a log easy. Rehabilitating an adult dog that now has developed fears and anxieties is going to take longer. However, two things taught me that no, we can change even quicker than I thought. And COVID in dogs, I
Hmm.
worked with a number of dogs during COVID. And then as we opened up, that I would have said, you won't be able to take this dog anywhere. He's afraid of his own shadow, let alone other people. I mean,
Yeah.
other dogs and unfamiliar people or loud noises. And it started with one dog called Cash. And Gina and I were taking a COVID weekend in Laguna Beach, and Cash was hopefully going to be an assistance dog, but no way. He came from the breeders up way up north where you are, but farther away from any place to buy milk. And he was just scared of. He came down to the Bay Area and then to San Diego, and it was too much for him. Anyway, so we're at Laguna. Gina was sick, and so I said, "You stay in bed. I'll take Cash out." So I walked him where it was quiet. I sat on the beachhead. There was a path there. And I sat there for 4 hours with his dinner in a bag.
Hmm.
And every time a person walked by, I gave him 3 bits of kibble. Every time a person had a dog, I gave him 5 bits. I gave him a running commentary all the time,
Ah.
praising him, reassuring him. But because I'm reassuring him when he's acting scared, I would praise him more as training went on when he's no longer acting scared. I'm still reassured. You see, people are scared to reassure
Hmm.
a scared animal because they think they'll unintentionally reinforce wimpy behavior. Whereas again, Mimi would say, of course
Mm.
you have to reassure an animal if it's scared. Well,
Right, right. If you had a child that was frightened, would you not
you
reassure the
would,
child?
but
I mean,
then what you would do,
why?
as soon
Right.
as the crying stops, you then go into jolly routine and say, wow, you are so brave.
Exactly.
And so we can classically condition and operantly condition at the same time, which means we're meant to be getting the dog to associate scary stimuli with food, if you like, or praise or
Hmm.
petting. Um, But if they're acting scared, to prevent them from encourage, because a lot of dogs will act scared because they know the owner will pick them up, hug them, and pet them. So now we wait until the scared behavior stops. See, they're no longer feeling scared because of the classical conditioning. And once they stop the lunging, the
Mhm.
barking, or the trembling, or the moving away, then we heavily praise them. And that's the bit that people miss. It's like getting a puppy to sleep on his own for his first night in his new home. He's petrified. You've taken him from mum and his litter mates.
Mhm.
And so I stay up with them until they fall asleep. And I've then woken them up half a dozen times. So once they fall asleep, I don't leave. I then praise them more. I sing
Mhm.
to them. I recite nonsense poetry. I hum. But then I wake them up and say, hey, you're not falling asleep on me. I'm still up here. It's 2 a.m. I've been up here for 3 hours. And then
Huh.
I say, okay, settle down, go to sleep. You're falling. So, and I find by the sixth time I wake them up, they're like, what do you want? I say, oh, you're tired. Okay, settle down, go to, and I make them stand up too. So it's wake up and stand up. Then I say,
Mm.
settle down, go to sleep.
Sure.
And so 6 trials because I
Sure.
stayed
Yeah.
on when the fear had gone and the praise and the tiredness is taking over. The next day, oh, I seldom stay up with them 20 minutes and then they lie down, go to sleep. The third day,
Wow.
I can't even remember the last dog I did that with. It seldom happens. And so I'm lucky.
Yeah.
You see, I do
So then
night work,
they've had a pretty stress
whereas
free.
Gina would get up and do early morning work. And so even when I leave them at say 1, 2, 3 a.m., I just leave the room they're in and sleep on a couch outside the door so that if they go, I say, it's okay. I'm still here, silly Billy. Now settle down, go to sleep. And if
Mm.
they do, I praise. See, so many people, they're like a baby putting it to sleep or a puppy when it's, shh, that tiptoe. I never tippy toe around. Once they eventually fall
Mm,
asleep,
no.
I say,
Yeah.
you're a good boy. You sleeping now? Well done, Jamie. Well done, Omaha. Good. That's right. And they can hear that. It's one of my earliest memories of hearing my parents sleep as I was being in the back of the car being driven. And I could hear the
Hmm.
words, and they were so comforting, you know, but I was still asleep.
Yeah. I think we've all
So yeah,
experienced
we
that.
must. I think
Hmm.
this to me is it's all about eliminating the development of natural fears. These are naturally programmed in for a horse to be flighty of anything, of a lion, let alone a person,
Hmm.
of
Yeah.
dogs to be scared of unfamiliar people, unfamiliar dogs. We must prevent that because it is so easy. It's so much fun. You have a party, for horse. This is a 24-hour party through the night. And it's never going to develop this flightiness if you've got 40 or 50 people in the stable and they're all coming up and petting it, and maybe giving a little bottle to suckle on.
Wow.
And when they, excuse me, or for puppies, hand feeding loads and loads and loads of pieces of kibble, not treats, obviously, because they're so commercial treats. It would
Mm.
end up with a liver like a goose. So you feed its normal kibble but as classical conditioning rewards. And I do it. I love dogs. Yeah, I love animals, but I actually do it for the people. Excuse me a second, I'm going to cough.
Yeah. Hmm.
Coffee is not the thing for a cough. Should have had water here. But I get so
Well, we
upset
can
when
take a
I
break if you
see.
need.
I was just rounding them up this morning. I got 2 people with reactive dogs. I'm on a walking street because it's so pretty. And we're going to film them this
Hmm.
week being reactive. And then I'll get them together as a group, and they will become a core social group of dogs that love each other. That's the process, but still walked
Hmm.
on leash for
Okay.
safety. But one by one, they would join the group once we've taken the reactivity out of them because it's the owners. I mean, how can you enjoy a dog that's going to go off if it sees a big dog in the distance or a little yappy dog in the distance. And, with horses, it's you're going to acknowledge you have a flighty animal, there's no socialization, and you're going to get on its back. You are crazy. No, you are crazy. It's why I loved it when you said you got Morgan. I said, that's good. My kind of horse, or walking horses.
Well, they're not. You don't fall very far. I mean,
Yeah.
they're only 14 hands, so I don't have to fall very far. But no, you're right. Everything you're. I mean, obviously, just amazing to hear what you think about horses, because there's different points of view, and so this is really interesting. Because some people are like, you can't. Well, how can I put it in words? The imprinting, that's controversial. The imprinting that Dr. Miller talks about, it's controversial with some people, which makes no sense. What you're saying to me
if I
makes sense.
heard
So,
someone say something like that, which from all I know about animal behavior, I consider it as a very stupid, dangerous, and cruel comment. If I were in a bar now, I wouldn't
yeah,
stop
no, I'm
talking
just
to
as
this
interested.
person until I've convinced them. Here's the deal. In 2 days, you can prevent most of horses' problems. What is your objection? Or would you rather this horse be flighty, anxious, and stressed for the rest of its life because every day it has to meet its biggest nightmare, which is you and other humans? No, I'm being serious.
Huh,
I'm not
yeah.
to socialize
No,
is
I'm listening,
downright
yeah.
cruel, and it's the cruelest thing to do to any animal, and then insist it lives around humans. So if we go to like the whole,
No, I agree.
um, I years back, I used to know the Pirellis, and I would often give a little doggy lecture at their, international workshops and courses and things. And I remember the whole natural horsemanship thing, and the horse whisperers would always talk about there's a big difference between horses and dogs because the horse is prey and the dog is a predator. I say, not when it comes to training them at all. Yep.
Exactly. I'm in agreement with you there because the natural horsemanship thing saying we're the alpha and they think we're a predator, da, da. He does not think you're a cougar.
No.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. The horse knows you're human. He knows you're not a cougar. That's ridiculous. So it's moving away from that. So, that constant moving their feet, which means they can't even engage their brain because they can't calm down. That's more like there's a lot
Yeah,
going
I
on and I'm
love
happy
it
to
that
see it.
it's
But I
hands
really,
off, and we're going to train this horse to come and lie down, go to his stable or go to his horse box, hands off. But when people, how should I put it? When professionals get involved in their species and their breed or an animal's working ability, they forget the basic principles of training, that behavior is changed by its consequences, and they would primarily be rewards or punishments. And as you've understood from my book now, the best type of punishment, which is not defined by its nature. You see, people think a punishment is unpleasant or nasty. It doesn't have to be.
Mhm.
And in about 60% of the scientific definitions of punishment, it just says a punishment is a stimulus. That. So punishment is defined by its effect on behavior, that the punishment reduces the frequency of the previous behavior, the targeted behavior you want to get rid of, such that it is less likely to occur in the future. And that's how we know that aversive
Exactly.
punishment isn't working, because they're still doing it. The dog is still wearing a specialized metal collar, or the horse a metal bit, or
Mhm.
what have you, or the elephant trainer has a bill hook, to hook it with.
Right. Yeah.
But what we use is a non-aversive punishment. And people think, what? How can that work? Well, 90% of the time with
Right.
dogs, I just say, Rover, sit. End of problem. What was he doing? Well, he was lunging on leash. It's not anymore. He was chasing his tail, chasing the cat. He was running out the front door. He was jumping up. Sit. So if you have taught your dog to sit, just one command, you can now stop, inhibit, eliminate all of those because they're mutually exclusive. And so, are we going to focus on misbehaviors and give the dog grief or the horse grief? Everyone does that. That's human nature. Or are we going to focus on the good behaviors and say, thank you? I was watching videos last
Oh,
night, and it
exactly.
was a
'Cause
Rottie who was a little out of control in the off-leash puppy 2 because he hadn't had much off-leash experience aside from going through puppy 1. So he's gone through puppy 1, so I know his teeth are safe. If he gets into an argument or he's scared, it'll be wah, 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 but there's going to be no puncture. So I'm doing a lot of work with him. And at one point, I stopped because he keeps stealing every other dog's stuffed animals. And at one point, he stole the dog's bed while the dog was lying on it and ripped it in the air and ran off, you know. So I've now found a more manageable stuffed toy, and I'm playing tug with him. And it's, off, take it, tug, 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 good dog, and thank you. Well, to start with, I say thank you, and he just grits his teeth. And it took about 3 to 5 seconds to get it out of his mouth. But after a few repetitions, I say, off, take it, tug, good boy. Who's a good boy? And thank you. And he sits, and I hold the tug up here, and he looks at me, and he lies down, and he sits up, and he looks at me again. He's training me now. He wants me to say, take it again. But he's throwing all these behaviors at me, and every one he does, I say, a good boy, that's good. But no. What I actually want now is to sit and stay. Good dog. There's a good boy. And we don't pay attention to all the good behaviors. And the number one good behavior in my book is one that's not bad. I remember telling a guy in class, said, praise your dog, praise your dog. And he said, why? He's not doing anything. And I went, precisely. We're here because he lunges on leash and growls. He is not lunging. He's not growling. He's not barking. He's not even eyeballing the other dog. He's sitting there looking at you, and you are ignoring him.
But and you say right in your book, you say increasing the good
Absolutely
decreases the bad.
It's so obvious.
That's right in, and it works with any animal.
It
Your
actually was
children
my
as well,
son who came up with that sentence, which crystallized everything I was trying to say in the book. If you have one command that the animal will always do, sit, whoa, lie down, you have so much control over that animal now, because all you're left to do is praise the rest. So, I usually have the dogs take a short group time out from play. It's amping up too much. So I say, all dogs down. And with our dogs, we do it with 8 dogs. I mean, just the 2 of us. We say, dogs down. Yep. Let's get a grip, shall we? Especially you, Rover. Yeah, chill. Okay. All right, dogs. Ready? Dogs, go play. Always a good dog. Good dog. Well done, Fido. Good. And we praise and praise and praise and praise so fast. And sometimes I've given 6 to 10 praise words within the first 3 seconds. And it's an absolute wonderful philosophy, but it took my son to crystallize it. I mean, I could take 3 hours to say any sentence, because I'm considering all the innuendos and facets of it, and trying to answer people's questions.
No, Jamie distilled it for sure. As an animal actor trainer, I run into this because I don't own the dogs I hire. I only have 3 of my own. So I have to hire a lot of dogs to come be animal actors. And so they have basic obedience to be comfortable and on set, they should know sit, stay, things like that. But what I find is I do my best not to let the owners work with their dogs. They can watch, but I want to work their dogs, because my energy and my intention and my praise, the dogs think this is the best day ever, because I keep your tone of voice when you say, well done, that is releasing energy and intention. And the dog, as you know, of course, feels that. And then of course I have treats that that he likes, and so then if they do it, they won't reward their dog for sitting there looking cute. I mean, that's all he has to do, right? But they're like, well, he's not, exactly what you said, he's not doing anything. And I'm like, he is killing it. He's look at him, he's happy, he's looking at camera, which is where I'm holding my eye line for, because he's learned to watch my eyes and my hand. And I just like, well done, good boy, and it's and they go, sometimes they get like, oh, people are watching me, I feel silly. I'm like, the dog doesn't care. He needs to hear that enthusiasm, that excitement, that because then we get a happy dog. I don't want to have a dog on set that's not happy because it's not fair to the dog. I wouldn't put him through it. He's got to be acclimated and be happy. And we get great performances because the dogs are having a blast. And you try training a cat, and if you try to have negative emotions
Their own.
around a cat, there is because I train cats or work with cats, it's their idea and they're having a good time and they feel the same thing.
Mhm.
Good cat. Oh, well done, you. And you can see the cat. I mean, sit up and yes, I am. And the same thing with a horse. And I keep going back to it, but the same thing with a child. Reward what you want.
Yeah, I think animal
You're exactly
acting
right.
is one of my favorite professions because, and these are things that a lot of animal actor want to be owners don't realize. Number one, your dog has to have a bomb-proof temperament. He can't be fearful, afraid
Exactly.
of anything because he's in a very spooky place. He's in a film set. And all sorts of things happen. There's unexpected noises and a lot of people there. Number two, the
A lot of people.
precision in terms of timing and place. So the director will tell you, well, I want the dog to walk in here, stop, look around, come up to this place, hold his paw up, and then lie down and look exhausted
Exactly.
on cue. And so it's
Yeah.
real precision training with you out of sight. And then you're working on all sorts of facial, what I like to do, Suzanne Clothier taught me this. I do a lot in lectures where I get people to pretend they're dogs and other people in class train them. And she was picked to get me to pay attention. And she knew it. I was going to misbehave big time. I was going to jump up on her. I was going to hump someone else in class, and I couldn't. The way she trained me and what she did was she said, "Are you watching me, Ian? Are you watching me?" She started moving like this. And I was mesmerized. Yeah. And I immediately stole that technique for teaching very lengthy stays when you want the dog to follow your head round. You keep like you're a snake charmer. And so it's a huge thing. And it's the same as like assistance dogs. It amazes me, the dogs that people bring and say, oh, I wanted to be assistance dog or a facility dog for children or what have you. And you think, the dog's scared to be just here. He can't do this because it takes a lot for your trained commands then to even get through to the dog, for them to acknowledge that you spoke.
Yeah, because he has to be comfortable.
So it's wonderful.
No,
and
exactly.
with cats, I've always said, if you want to be a good dog trainer, teach a cat to come and heel.
Yeah, well, that's really true because cats have their own agenda.
Well, that's where people should realize that this was I was slightly at odds when I did my dog workshop with horses because I trained horses the same way as I train dogs, lure reward training. When you train cats the same way, so for your cat listeners out there, you read my book and you cross out the word dog or puppy and put in cat or kitten. We have always had cats with better recalls than the dogs in our home. And the reason is, as soon as you get outside, the cats can come in a straight line. They just climb over a wall, jump down, up a tree, take a shortcut. Dogs have to go round.
Yep.
And we used to do this with demos. I had a film crew from Japan once, and they said, well, where are your dogs? I said, oh, they're around. I said, dogs, cats, come. And the two cats were sitting in front of us before the dogs ever got there. And they didn't think they wouldn't film the cats. It was like, no, we've come here to film your dogs. And I thought that would be so cool to see the cats come first. And then the cats are there as the dogs doing their routines. The cats are like going under them to get a back rub or rubbing up against them,
Exactly. Yeah.
But
there's
a number of species which I love because you can't do this stupid alpha stuff with them. You do it once and you've lost the animal as a pupil for life. And when you move up, once you get to the bear stage, like grizzly bears, I mean, how do you think they train grizzly bears? We're going to grab him by his grizzly bear cheeks and give him an alpha row and say, bad bear.
Roll them on
No,
the
this is a
ground. Yeah.
question. How
No,
do
no,
we
I don't
train
train
grizzly
exotics,
bears?
but I
Did
know what
any
you're
of your
talking
listeners
about.
know? I'll tell you. The rewards are primarily verbal. Good bear, good Bart, slapping him on the back, a marshmallow for a better behavior,
Or
and when
jelly.
they knock it, when they absolutely get it right, a unopened can of Coke, and they catch it and go and get the biggest sugar rush they've ever had. I'm being serious.
Yeah. No, the bear trainer that I did know, because I don't do exotics, I don't hire them anymore. But back when I did, it was jelly donuts. It was like a
Yeah,
squeezed jar of jelly. It was marshmallows. You're right, and it was a big bear. But no, it's different, a little bit different. But yeah, there's no one's going to argue
no,
with the bear. So no, I get it. I get it. No, that's cool. Let's talk about other species because I'm purposely using my cow
cow
mug
mud.
today because we have a we I'm a
Mhm.
designer, so this is
My
one of my
cow mug
designs.
is
But
broken. I
I
am so upset. You see it here, and
oh
here is a big crack. This I'm going to put, I may put a staple in actually. I don't want the mug to fall in too. Actually, I have um,
no.
crockery up there that's 250 years old, and it has lead staples in it
Ooh,
where there's
cool.
cracks. That's how they used to mend it back then
Yeah, 'cause
because it's so
they used to fix
soft. And you,
things. Yeah. No, that's
anyway, I'm going
interesting.
to, yeah, my little calf mug is so beautiful. Yeah,
Oh, there's your
I
cow. I
know.
can see her
Mm.
now. There she is. Yeah. I adore cows. I as a photographer, I've had the pleasure of
Oh,
shooting cows for advertising campaigns, and I live in dairy country.
Wisconsin.
I mean Wisconsin. So I get to go and hang out at the dairy farms if I want to. And my neighbors raise calves, and of course they
Yeah,
suck on your fingers, and that's like the best, coolest sensation. But cows, along like sheep and other herd animals, people do not give them credit for how incredibly smart they are. And I want to hear about, I mean, you talk about in your book riding cows. When I ran
exactly.
away as a little girl, when I was up at the lake, I ran away because everyone was ignoring me. I found this dairy farm and the kids had cows there and their parents were gone. And so we rode cows.
Yeah.
We jumped on their backs and rode them around. So I share that, but they were not trained. We fell off. But it was really fun and one of the highlights. So I want to hear about
Well,
your love
as
affair of
you,
cows
well, they're
because
my
they are amazing,
favorite
wonderful
animal
animals.
because we had a big L-shaped field about 20 acres, and that's what I saw outside my bedroom window. And you could tell the time by were the cows here or at the corner or were they down there. That's what they did twice a day. And so they
Hmm.
were very good to tell the time. I love them. A story I'll tell one story in the book and then one that's not. So my grandfather classically conditioned all the animals on the farm and cows. And why, you may ask? Cows are very inquisitive. If they're not scared of people, they will approach them. Well, in England, we have a lot of public walkways, pathways that go through private property. So they're allowed to walk
Hmm.
on the footpath, and it goes right across our fields. And so if someone's doing that, the cows are going to see them and slowly walk over. Well, if you don't know cows, it looks pretty damn
Yes.
scary when most of them are black. A few don't look so scary because they're brown and white, they're Angus Hereford crosses. And so when we would get in our 1 day old heifers, my grandfather would invite all the kids from the village to teach them to drink from a bucket because you see they've had 1 day
Sure.
drinking from a teat, and that's lovely and easy. Now they have to stay alive, they've got to drink from a bucket, so you've got to teach them. So we got all the kids to do this, and it was mayhem. We would end up, cow butts because he's not getting good suction because you haven't got your fingers right, so you can suck it. And then the
Yeah,
milk formula
exactly.
goes all over you, and they lick you with their raspy tongue, which is like it, gets
Hmm.
paint off hardwood or something. And I asked him years later when I was at vet college, why did you do that, Grant? Why didn't you and the farmhands just do it? It would have been so much quicker. And he said, you know, We have open footpaths here, open to anyone. There'll be families, there'll be children misbehaving. I wanted the calves' first impressions of children to be a very pleasant one, with the kids covered in milk powder. They're squeaking, screaming all the time. So I thought that was amazingly prescient for someone who left school at 12. But he did it with all the animals, with pigs. And I tell you, with pigs, man, probably the most dangerous. People think it's bulls. No, I think it's a sow right after she's farrowed. She looks so
Oh
fat,
yeah.
lying there like she couldn't move and peaceful. And you hop over, say to give her a shot of oxytocin or something, and you jump back so fast you can't believe it. And they come in very low with their dirty teeth. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they don't have their
Sharp teeth.
tusks,
Yeah.
like the males, but oh man, they can deliver a very nasty bite. So he just made all the animals handleable. The other story, this is a training story, and I was lecturing in Puerto Vallarta to the Texas Academy of Veterinarians on cow behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And the audience was just a bunch of disbelievers. Imagine it. These are Texas cow vets.
Yeah.
They're all wearing, cowboy boots. They got hats on, jeans. They all have their feet up on the chair in front of them with their legs crossed and arms folded, leaning back. And what are they going to learn from this
Ooh.
28-year-old, Californian hippie? My hair was down to here. And I was lecturing, and I was talking about how Roundup was one of the silliest things I'd ever heard about. I mean, who would take an animal like a herd of cows and let them all loose without any prior training, without even teaching them to come when called? And I said, I would do this. I would drive around the range, how often you do it, every day, twice a day, once a week, whatever, in your pickup. And I would drive, and when I see them, I'd go honk, honk, and then I'd toss off a little bit of silage. Then I'd drive on, honk, honk, then a little bit of silage. And honk, honk, then I'd drive away back to the ranch. And that's how I'd always do my inspections. And then when it comes down to, Roundup, you just go out in your pickup. It's centrally heated, for goodness sake, or you've got air conditioning whenever you're rounding them up, and you just drive your pickup going honk, 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 and there's a load of silage in the back, but you don't stop till you get to the ranch. So anyway, I was telling them that, and they obviously would there was no facial expression change when I'm talking about cows. Like, they don't like walking into dark spaces, neither do horses, neither do pigs and sheep at slaughter. They love yellow. So have increasing, intensity of yellow lights wherever you want to go, like in the back of a horse box. Duh. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Right.
I got a beautiful letter from this vet, and he was a rancher too, He said, Dr. Dunbar, I must admit, when I attended your lecture, I just did it as a joke to see what you could possibly tell me. He said, well, what you said about Roundup made sense, so I did it. Unbelievable. I arrived back at the ranch going, honk, 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 with the whole herd. But because you know how they do it. If one cow will follow you, then the rest will follow, generally the one cow. So it's, I love them. It's wonderful.
Oh, they are. They are. I have a quick cow story. I was photographing a Holstein, a beautiful Holstein at her farm, dairy farm. And while they were setting up lights, there was a herd of about 75 to 100 heifers and cows. And I wanted to go out and photograph the group. And I said, you guys set up lights. So I didn't bring my assistant. I was out there with just my camera. And of course, I feel really safe around cows. I'm used to body language. There wasn't a bull. And so I was, but 75 cows suddenly were very curious. Mm-hmm. And they kept coming closer and circling me and pressing in, because the back cows wanted to see who that was, because I was a unique person. And they were pressing, and they were getting closer and closer. And I was like, okay, I think I need to get out of this group without panicking them or scaring them, because they will step on you. A horse doesn't want to because you're squishy. A cow will step on you if you're in the way. That was one of the most exciting times with cows, but also one of the scariest, because I have photos of those cows, 40 heads, and bodies coming in closer, closer, closer. And I'm just, oh, excuse me, pardon me, excuse me, and trying to just gently to get to the fence line, crawled under the fence line. And now there's 75 cows lined up on the fence line looking at me in perfect formation because they're like, you're
Yeah.
so interesting. And she was like, you didn't go out there alone, did you? Because they usually have a gator or a
Yeah.
vehicle, four-wheel, ATV or whatever. And I was like, oh no, I just walked out there, and like, oh, But I was grateful that I didn't get excited. They didn't get excited. But it was also really cool because you're right.
And
They're
that
so
pressure
curious.
is, I mean, it happened to me once when I was very young, but looking after a dairy farm. Around animals, I was pretty smart as a kid, not as I am. Normally, I'm pretty stupid about things and laugh at everything. But this couple had never been on holiday. They only had about 40 dairy cows. I said, why don't you go on holiday, go back to Scotland, and I'll stay at the farm, do the milking, and feed them. And I'm responsible. And if I have any trouble, I'll call my grandpa. He'll come round. And it was the second day on my own that Jenny came in, and the chain, to chain her up for milking had dropped down. I walked between her and a wall to pick this chain up, and she just moved her back foot, put it on my foot, and stood and didn't remove it. And I tried everything. And of course, if you push, you get thigmotaxis. The harder you push, the more they lean into you. And I sort of said, help, help.
Yes.
I thought, I'm on my own here. And I realized that's why you never, when you get in the chain, you always go under the neck and reach for it. And you never, bend, you always keep your rear leg straight. So if they move into you, you fall away from the animal. But you don't go between a cow and a wall. And then after about 10 minutes, and I'm saying, Jenny, move, for God's sake, you're hurting me. And I tried twisting her tail,
She's
things they
1,000 pounds,
do. She looked round at me like this,
Yeah.
just chewing her cud. And then about, I don't know, it seemed like an hour, probably 5 minutes, 10 minutes, she just took the weight off. They don't know their own weight. And you're right, when they're inquisitive.
Did your foot recover?
Oh, yeah.
Is your foot okay?
It was because it was so squishy underneath. There's a lot of straw there.
Oh, okay. Because when a horse steps on you, it's kind of I mean, they will move eventually, but you're right. If horse steps on you, push on your shoulder, he leans into you. Like it hurts more, so you're better off.
Yeah, and it's how you solidify, say, stays in dog training. If you want a shy Sheltie to sit boldly, you stroke her from nose over the top of her head, getting more and more pressure, then you push down. If you want a solid stand stay, you go stand, and then you got to get the head pointed down so the luring comes out. And then if you leave it there, the dog will stand and sit. So you out to stand, then you drop your hand, stay to get its nose down a bit. And then I hold the food there, and then I press on the withers. And I sort of go push, 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 until the forelegs are absolutely solid. Then we go down the back bit by bit,
right? Because
till we get to the hips and the butt. And then when you can do this there, push, 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 you've got it now. As I used to tell them, in obedience, now the judge is your double handler in the ring. You see, as they run the hand along the dog's back, what they're actually saying to the dog is stand, stay, stand, stay, stand, stay, stand, stay. So your dog gets really rigid. So thigmotaxis, and it's brilliant. One of the major reasons I, have against jerking. If the jerking works with a loose leash to be unpleasant, but once the leash is tight, jerking only works to train the dog to do exactly what you don't want, to pull against you, to move away.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like with a bridle and a bit. If you just have constant pressure, you're going to make a mouth that gets desensitized to the bit and hard. They're going to pull. A horse will always pull. That's why when you're training them to tie, if you tie them solid and fast, so they pull back and they get pressure, they're going to pull back harder, and you break something or hurt themselves or flip over. Where if you use a tie blocker or some other form where it moves a little bit of pressure, that they can pull back without that slam, they learn to stand tight because then they give. Same idea.
I bought a horse because, well, she was going to be glue the next day, and I loved her. She had a beautiful
Mm-hmm.
trot. It's like she wasn't moving at all. It's like a pasofino, you know. It was like you're going skiing,
Mm-hmm.
and you know. And so I bought her, and she had a great trot, but she had a frisky canter, which is too much for me. I'm not an expert horseman. I only learnt to ride because I was a vet, and by law back then, you had to treat every animal. That means I could be around horses and
Ah.
horsey people, and you know, so I learnt to ride. So one day with Pudding, she was called Black. What was it? Black Forest or something. Her name. I changed it to Pudding, Black Pudding, because she looked like a pudding, right? So one day,
Pudding.
um,
Mm-hmm.
and when I bought her, she was uncatchable in a stall. Well, that as a dog trainer, that took me what, 20 minutes? Really simple. I just went in there and
Right.
I had some little briquettes of, oh God, can't remember what you call them now. Pardon?
Alfalfa pellets or something, or treats?
Alfalfa, yeah, bricks.
Alfalfa,
And I
or treats.
cut them,
Yeah.
actually sawed them so they didn't splinter into like quarters, and a little bit, a dash of peppermint
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit of molasses. And so I just stood there with them and
Mm.
waited. She came up to me, I gave her one. Then I walked to a different corner. She came up to, I gave her one. And then I had a dog leash actually. And from underneath, I flipped it around her neck, said, "Gotcha." Briquette, briquette, briquette. And she said, "Cool, I like that."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So then we had a recall on her very quickly, but I thought I'm going to do the same with her gaits because my legs are hopeless, you know, for communicating to a horse. It's like, you know, knees come in, then toes go out. You know, I mean, I'm sorry, I can't
Mm-hmm.
multitask with toes and heels and knees and hips. So I trained her on the ground like a dog, off leash, and
Yes.
I had picked some of the greenest grass you've ever seen over the other side of the fence. And I had it in my hand and I was
Mm.
feeding her and off, take it, thank you, like a dog. And then, whoa, okay. And then walk. And we walked. And then trot. I was
Sure.
really fit then. So the horse is trotting along, you know, changing gait, and then walk and whoa. So we had three gears, and then I went on a fourth for a canter, which I could only do for about 10 yards because it was too fast for me to run. And then I went round and I put a pleasure spot on the right side of her neck because most people approach horses on the left, and the right side
Yes.
is a good side. It's not poisoned. So as a vet, I always went up to the right side of horses. I remember horsey people used to think it's weird. I said, look, bad stuff hasn't happened from here, but good stuff is going to. So I would
Right.
touch her
Yeah.
on the neck and hand feed her. Touch, feed, touch, feed. Well, this spot I can now tap from the saddle. Good Pudding, well done Pudding, tap, tap, tap. And I got on the horse the next day and my trainer's looking at me and I got my position right. And like I'm in an armchair sitting up straight, like I did ballet. So I got my hands nicely like in ballet form,
Uh-huh.
you know,
Yep.
like ballet 1.5, you know, halfway between this and this. Reins in my hand, wrapped round pinky and stuff. I said, Pudding, walk. Then Pudding, trot. Good Pudding, good Pudding. And she just shook her head. She said that it worked. And the other thing I found out was, and you probably know this, because when you're getting dogs to form associations, you give a verbal command and then you lure. So I say Pudding, walk, and then the lure
Mhm.
moves away from her because I'm walking with it, right? To make that association,
Right.
Pudding, walk, and the lure's going to move away, therefore I walk. Takes most dogs about 12 repetitions. I have known dogs that have taken 20, and I had a couple of dogs that took about 50 to 100 repetitions. Border collies often take 3. Horses take 3. Horses
Yes.
learn it so quickly.
They learn
Oh,
good
yeah.
and bad in 3. I mean, they learn good
Well, the
behaviors and
learning
bad
the back
behaviors in 3.
behavior bit
This
is
brings up a
usually to
good.
do with people using aversive stimuli in training. And the first thing they learn is when you can't hurt me, i.e., if I raise myself up in the air and paddle my front legs, if I run away from you, If I
Exactly.
buck and then run away from you, they learn all these things. Now I'm pain
Mhm.
free.
Oh,
I called
absolutely.
it pain free horse training people. They learn how to stop training, and some of them, and we get this in dogs too, learn helplessness. Like the mastiff will just stand still. The
Yes.
golden retriever just flops down. Said, "I've had it.
Yeah, we call it a
That's it."
shutdown. The horses will shut down, and
But
people
you can have
or dogs
aggressive
do the same.
shutdowns too, where the horse says, "You try that once
Hmm.
more, you're off." But you have to realize this is
Yeah.
not a bad horse that needs to be broken. You taught the horse that. It's doing it.
No, there's a saying, horses have, there's a saying that horses are only do what they've been taught to do or allowed to do. So that's kind of an old axiom,
And
taught to
allowed to
do or
do.
allowed to
They've
do.
allowed.
And so when
You see, people don't understand what the word
and
domesticated means. A domestic animal is not fully domesticated until it's socialized with people. Because
right.
that's like the definition of it. Just because it's a horse doesn't mean to say it's a domestic animal. If you let it grow up on its own, it will
No.
become flighty and scared of people, especially unfamiliar people making loud noises and sudden movements. If you socialize it during the
Mhm.
first 48 hours, it is now a domesticated animal. And you won't have to do with all these bad things that you think is in the heart of the horse. Oh no, we have to break him of these
No,
habits.
yeah, yeah.
If you handled him, he wouldn't have these habits. If as a foal you walked him round with half a sack of wheat on his back, he'd be ready for someone to lumber up and sit there. And people just don't think ahead. What will this animal have to do when it's grown up? How do we want it to misbehave? And they're very deceptive because a foal it's harmless. Puppies are harmless, and puppies appear to be overly friendly and overly
Hmm.
socialized. But no, that's because you're only seeing them socializing with the same person, you. You want to make sure it's going to be confident with unfamiliar people and dogs.
Oh, absolutely. We do that. We do that with when I don't, my cats don't have kittens. So when I need something, I will go adopt some more kittens because I don't, otherwise, so there's always kittens that need homes. We take those kittens everywhere because how on earth can
Oh
I
yeah.
expect him to be a studio cat and learn how to be comfortable in studio if I don't take him everywhere I go and have him play with other people, get treats from other people, get pet from other people, and learn to not be afraid. Because people say, my cat could be a model. And I'm like, well, maybe he does these things at home, but the minute you get him in a studio where he can see everything around him is a stimulus and he gets frightened because he doesn't know, and he's not familiar. And the same thing when we get a new dog. And we got a dog during COVID, but that dog went everywhere with us. And we just made sure to get him out, as around as many people as possible outside, as safely as we could, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, he's one of my best
Mhm.
acting dogs. He has the most fun, loves everything, every other animal, every other dog. He's a collie, border collie
Yeah.
mix, which is to me heaven. So, but I know
Well,
I
this is what.
understand what you're saying.
Sorry.
I wanted to ask you,
No, I was going to say
so go
this
ahead.
is what veterinarians
Oh,
should be
please. Yeah.
telling everyone that when they get their 8-week old, so it's 2/3 through critical period of socialization for dogs and cats, but we got a month. Um, Socialize it non-stop. Invite people to your home, or take it for carry it in public, crate it in public, cart it in public, or car ride. People don't
Mhm.
realize that you can socialize cats and dogs to almost anything by having them in a car crate. And for the really big dogs, it can be in the back of the car. So you can go to a car park in a shopping center, open your boot flap. It never
Mhm.
sniffs the ground where the danger of infectious diseases are. And you could
Right.
sell puppy kisses $1 each, or kitty kisses. Because
Everybody always
yeah, and
wants to
it's
come
really
and see for
important with
sure.
cats because I think they never leave the house, and then one day they're feeling poorly, and the owner catches them, frightens them, puts them in a crate,
Hmm.
frightens them, puts them in the car, and then takes them to the vet clinic where a stranger's going to pull them out and examine them. This must be so stressful, and that's what you shouldn't be doing to a sick animal. You should have trained your animal
No, and he could bite
like when they
somebody.
pull up in the vet clinic parking park, they think, yep, mum and pop's treat dispensary.
Oh yeah, no, my cats like chicken or turkey, and that's the reward for all these behaviors. I learned I've learned that if when you have a cat in your house, sorry, I know it's
No,
about
this
dogs,
is
but the
about
principles are the
animals.
same. And say the cat's annoying you, the cat's doing something, cat's being a cat, but it's annoying. The behavior seems to be annoying because he's being a cat. You don't want him around. You grab him. People do this. Grab the cat and throw him in another room, or throw him downstairs, or throw him outside. Right? Literally pick him up and throw him. Or not throw him, but like open the door, put him out. What has he learned? When you grab me, you take me away from you, who I want to be with, because if the cat's socialized, he wants to be around. So then, like, every time you pick him up, something negative happens. And then they go, well, my cat's not cuddling. He won't let me pick him up. Well, because every time you've picked him up, something bad happens. I use
Hmm.
turkey, like, here, we're going to go in your crate for a while. Here's the follow the jump up, get the treat, yummy, content. We're going to go here. We're going to go downstairs because I can't have all of you here right now. So I'm going to open the door. They all run down the steps, look at me, yum, 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 yum. It's like, so then when I go to pick them up, it's always pleasant.
Hmm.
We're going to have a nice purr. We're going to have attention. And the same principle with the dog. If I grabbed his collar and dragged him around, why would he learn anything good from that? Whereas if I go, here's something that you enjoy, your kibble, whatever, we can go in your crate. Like even now, my trained dogs, I'll still throw a little bit of kibble in the tray, because it's like, crate time. We're gonna have crate time now. There you go. Here's your little bit, and they're like happy and content. No whining, no fussing, and they'll do that everywhere because we've
Yeah, I
socialized. And
think cats
so,
especially, I always say to people, we are very lucky that domestic cats don't come in the same sizes as domestic dogs, because the life of most cat owners
right,
would be over that fast. So now thinking about the cat's feelings, we must handle them. We've got to get them to be floppy, like a stuffed toy, so that when you take it to the vet, we just use verbal commands. We say, "Doon, hup." He jumps, used to jump on the exam table, stand. He won't move. And then we can examine most of the animal. And then we jump in on the floor and say, bang. He's on his back like this. So you can then examine the underside. And we do it with cats too. And
sure.
then they really learn to love the chest scratch. It's mesmerizing for them. And when they've had
Mhm.
enough, they'll tell you, they'll just take your hand in their two
Oh,
paws
they'll tell you.
and then you stop. And you only need stop for 4 seconds and then they paw you again. I need more now. Otherwise they get overstimulated.
Hmm.
But you've got to
Right,
desensitize
tail switches.
I call them subliminal bite triggers. So these are the 13 most common reasons why a dog or cat would bite you. And so, number one, we have to
Exactly.
tone down the force of the bite by teaching bite inhibition, by playing with the cat and letting it mouth our fingers and the dog
Right.
too, so we can give feedback while it's got weak jaws but pointy teeth, and to make sure it understands that its bites hurt us before they develop big old blunt teeth and very powerful jaws.
Especially in a cat
But
too,
yeah,
because a cat bite can be pretty infectious. So that when you get bit by a cat, you better watch
yeah.
that because it can be pretty infectious. But my kittens learn when we're playing with them, the bite inhibition. I know exactly what you're talking about, where they nibble, and then you teach them that you're telling me something, okay, but this is too much, this is enough, or whatever. So none of my cats bite. I mean, they're
Yeah.
lovely to handle.
I when I came over here in '71, I had no money because you could only take 300 pounds out of England. I had nothing, and
Mm.
um, luckily someone took pity on me, a primatologist, and she said, "Ian, would you like to house sit?" I said, "What's house sitting?" They said, "Well, these people are going to Africa to look at baboons, and they need someone to look after their Malamute and their cat. And they kind of like the idea you were a
Hmm.
veterinarian." And I said, "Yeah. And you can drive their car." "Oh, that's cool. And they'll pay you." So I became a professional house sitter only for people in the hills who were going away for more than 6 months. So this was the first time I'd been housed with a cat. Gina was an indoor cat. I'd never had that. All our cats were indoor, outdoor cats, including the
Hmm.
farm cats. And And of course, they had a longer life expectancy because of the farm dogs, that all the nasty things that were coming around to mess with the cats, the dogs would, take them out. And this
Right.
cat would go ballistic at 10 a.m. and it would climb up a vertical beam and then run along the beams on the ceiling, hanging, with like this,
Hmm.
maniacal, And then it would, it was crazy. So I didn't know what to do. Normally, I would have said, "Oh, go outside and do that, catch a rat or something." And so what I did was, I had a little flashlight. They didn't have laser lights back then, and it had a really pinpoint beam, and cat toy, and I would lead it away
Hmm.
into the kitchen. And when it's in the I would pull a string, and the kitchen door would close. And then I felt bad about it. So I eventually learned, if you can't beat them, join them. So at 5 to 10, what I would do is, I had a little ball, like a racket ball. It's actually a squash ball, a little smaller,
Hmm.
with feathers on it, on the end of a fishing line. And at five
Sure.
to 10, I would sit in the armchair in front of the fire and flick this up the carpeted stairs, you know, and the cat would go, "What?" And then,
Hmm.
and kept them. And I would do this for about 5 minutes. And then at 10 o'clock, the cat would be. So we let it have its activity period on a cushioned stairs, you know,
Hmm.
but the cat got what it wanted. I got what I wanted. So there's always a
Sure.
solution when I think you see it from the animal's point of view, that what we define as a behavior problem, the dog would define as my favorite activities, like running away, being chased,
Oh, for sure.
chasing, cat eating cat poop, going crazy in the middle of the morning, in the middle of the evening, for cats nocturnally. They are nocturnal animals. I mean, that's what they love doing.
Hmm.
And to deny them that, well, barking. We always barkathon up on the balcony, 5 o'clock every evening. Glasses of wine for Kelly and I, and when we'd go, whoop, 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 whoo, and then the dogs would start. And we had a hound dog too. Can you imagine that? You're like, ooh, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
went right across the. I'm like in a great big foresty ball, so I can't see any houses from my house, but they're there in the trees.
Hmm.
And people in the flatlands of Berkeley must have heard this plaintive howling with three dogs, not knowing it was started by Kelly and I.
Oh.
They probably thought, "Do you think those dogs can tell time? Why do they always howl at 5 p.m.? Because we're
Oh.
dying for a glass of wine. That's why."
There you go. There you go. Everybody's trained. That's pretty great. That's pretty great. Well, this has been really amazing. We're so grateful that you took the time to speak with us today. I imagine now your book comes. By the time this comes out, your book will be out because your book comes out early December of 2023.
Comes out 5th of
Correct? The
December,
hard.
yeah.
You can buy the book. Right, and the title of the book I wanted
Barking
is
up the right tree. Yeah,
Barking Up the Right Tree.
the right tree.
Barking Up the Right Tree. Yep. And I imagine that you can find that
It's
book
already
anywhere they
online
sell
at all
books,
the
right?
big
Like
online
online.
retailers. I would like to mention another thing. We have just, it actually happens on the 2nd December.
Hmm.
We are resuscitating a program that we've had for 20 years now. And that's where Serious Puppy Training, my company, funded
Yeah,
this
I was
program,
going to ask about it.
because that's always been a steady, good income. We have 25 puppy training schools, all in the Bay Area. And we would give away 2 free books before you get your puppy, after you get your puppy, to every Humane Society shelter in the Bay Area. So that this is
Oh,
the Bay
wow.
Area,
Okay.
is probably the highest
Hmm.
earning state, just the Bay Area in the whole of the US. It's its own country. To every participating vet clinic, we had about 100. To pet stores, we had
Hmm.
very few of those. And anyway, they got boxes of these books, and I published them, so they're only 99 cents a piece. Um, but I would deliver these boxes of books, And then it got too much because we had too many people who wanted the free books to give to. So they went to vets and pet stores because that's where people went when they got the first day they got their puppy. And then when we
Okay.
went digital, oh, and then we started shipping them, but it cost so much money. It cost 5 times the shipping than the price of
Mhm.
the book. So I capped it at
Right.
about, 200 places we were delivering to. Then we went digital and thinking, great, now it's ebooks. But it dropped off. It fell out of favor because pet stores and veterinary clinics
Huh.
were total Luddites when it came to websites. They were the last people to,
Oh, okay.
shelters were on board still because they knew, whatever. Anyway, so we're starting it again with a vengeance. And my goal is within a
Oh,
year
that's
to
great.
reach critical mass so that every prospective puppy owner knows about these 2 books before they get their puppy. So here's the deal. Anyone can download these books for free now from dunbaracademy.com. And the link you need is dunbar.info/free pup books, one word. So dunbar.info.
Fantastic. We'll
Yeah, and
we'll
if
put
you
that in
just
the show
type
notes
that
too.
in,
People will be able
it's
to see
a
it right
called
on
a
the
Bitly
notes.
link. It'll come up with
Mhm.
the URL and take you there. And not only can you download these 2 books for free, and it's very quick. You go click one book, click another book.
Mhm.
Then I
Yeah.
just say a little sentence and say, and also we have another gift. So this is for your listeners. If they go down to the third click, they can access all of the
Mhm.
Top Dog Academy. I'm talking hundreds and hundreds of hours for free
Oh
for a
my.
month.
That's
So you get a
fantastic.
1 month free subscription to the
Fantastic.
Top Dog Academy. So spread the word. So when you get these books, share them with every doggy owner you know, because someday they might get another puppy. If you hear someone's getting a puppy, please
Oh,
spread the
like
books around. I want to get critical mass within the year. I think perfectly doable. Um,
oh, I agree. And what I said in the very beginning, dogs are
yeah.
going to be better for this. This is going to make
And
dogs'
owners'
lives
lives
better.
as well.
That exactly because it's hand in hand. But it just does my heart well to hear that you're sharing this with so many, and we will do our
You,
best to
you know,
spread the word too.
yeah,
But
you
this
keep
will help
mentioning
dogs.
children a lot. And yeah, we're in the doggy world and the cow world, but I personally do a lot of the dog stuff for people. And by that, I mean, I
Hmm.
find it very sad sometimes that I don't think people get the joy of dog ownership or living with a dog as much as I do. But what this really is about is all this stuff works with all animals, people included.
Well,
We are
we are
mammals.
mammals. See, humans
And
are animals.
my
So,
favorite animal is my son, Jamie. And he runs the company now. And you can ask him a question if you don't believe what
mhm.
I say next. We have never had an argument. It goes without saying, I've never laid my hand on him for anything, never grabbed him. I've laid my
No.
hand on him gently because he was going to step into the street when we're walking off leash when he was younger, or to hug him. But we have never had an argument. I don't see why we should. We have disagreements, especially now we work together. And my response is always, Jamie,
Hmm.
these are not mutually exclusive. You do it your way, I do it mine. We see which one works the best. And that's what we're doing right now. I've changed our free book download. It used to be a rigmarole to get them. You had to do this and that and
Mm.
give your email. And now it's just click, the book's yours. Click, the book's yours. And
Well, we'll
then the
share the
third
links for
click,
sure.
you get to see what we're really about. Hundreds of you can binge watch. It would take you 5 months to go through. This is a big site. Anyway,
Oh, that's great.
so Barbara, it has
Fantastic.
been wonderful and a joy to speak about horses and cats, um, and of course cows as well as dogs. I love them all. I love
Cows for sure.
I think people have a training gets a bad rap. They say, "Oh, it's cruel to train an animal," But I say, no. Training an animal in my book is teaching an animal ESL. So it clearly understands what we're
Right.
asking it to do in normally spoken sentences. So, like I mentioned
Right.
Jamie,
English
so
as a
one of my
second
favorite
language.
sentences
Sure.
in the book is with Jamie. It's Phoenix, come here and sit. Come means come and sit. Phoenix, come, take this, go to Jamie, please. Malamute Male. She would run notes. Go and find him and deliver a note in the garden. That's what training is about, to open
Oh, that's
communication
wonderful.
channels so animals
Exactly.
aren't accused of misbehaving.
No, this has been so informative. I just wish I could follow you around and just
Well, you never
absorb
know. I
because
may
it's
come out and take a
fantastic.
cow
I'm
holiday
grateful
up
to our.
north.
Well, I can show you all of the
Yeah.
cows. We've got them all here, and they're
Mm.
all wonderful. Like I said, they're my favorite thing to photograph as well. Again, thank you so much. We're going to be wrapping this up. All of Dr. Barnard's, or sorry, Dr. Dunbar's information will be in the links to all of this. This will be on YouTube. This will also be on all of Apple, Spotify, any place you get a podcast. Again, we're grateful.
And
So
we'll
thank you again.
obviously let Jamie know when it is released, and we'll give the old podcast a boost too on our social media.
Oh, thank
Yeah, there's
you.
no point me
Thank you.
doing this if we don't then both promote it. Yeah.
Just
But
spread
well,
it
here's a
around.
point in
Yeah.
doing this. It's
Okay,
just
so I
been a
need you to.
fun start to my day. I'm taking the day off. I'm going in the garden. Well, to garden.
There you
Yeah.
go.